The houseplants that I'm going to share in today's video are super expensive, and we're going to explore, are these houseplants worth the hype? Hey plant lovers, welcome to today's video. What's the most you have ever paid for a houseplant? Let me know in the comments, as I'm very curious. Personally, I've never really splashed out a huge amount on a plant. I just can't bring myself to do it. So the plants that I'm going to be talking about in the video today, the prices are based on roughly what I could get hold of this plant for online in the UK, not including imports. So the first plant on the list is the Philodendron Spiritus Sancti. I'm not sure if this is the most expensive philodendron on the market, but it's certainly one of the most expensive. So here in the UK, I could get hold of a 10 to 15 centimetre pot for around £200. Now, in my opinion, that's quite a high price for a fairly small plant. Just imagine if this plant got thrips or something like that. You'd be devastated, wouldn't you? But in addition to that, for me personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm not too keen on this plant. I don't really like plants that have the really long leaves. I don't know why, it's just not to my personal taste, but maybe you already have this plant or you'd love to get it. Maybe it's on your wish list. I'd love to know your experience. But yeah, I definitely would not pay this price for this plant. In fact, I wouldn't buy this plant even if it was cheap, because it's just not my thing. So, you know, I guess it comes down to personal taste. I'm sure some people absolutely adore this plant. The next one on the list is the Anthurium Falls. Now, I have to admit, I do actually like this one. I think it's a really lovely Anthurium, and this one is quite expensive. Here in the UK, you could get a small baby plant for between £100 and £250, and we're talking like a little baby tot for that price. If you wanted to get a larger plant, you are looking at anywhere upwards from £600, depending on how big the plant is, how many leaves it has. But I have to say, this one is gorgeous, and if it wasn't for the fact that I seem to have bad luck with Anthuriums, I'd definitely buy this. If it was cheaper, I'd wait for it to come down. That tends to be my tactic with these rare plants, because eventually they become more commonly available. So no, I wouldn't pay this high price for it, but yes, I would buy it if it was cheaper. Because I am terrible with Anthuriums. I don't know if it's just a humidity problem, but they just don't grow well for me. So if I was to spend a lot of money on one, I think that would just be a terrible idea. It would cause me stress trying to keep it alive. But yeah, I do admit that this one is a stunning plant, and if the price came down one day, I may well give it a go. Okay, the next one on the list I absolutely adore. It is the Philodendron Florida Beauty. Wow, this one really is a beauty, and yes, I would definitely like to get my hands on this one. It definitely stands out to me as the plant on this list that I would love to own. However, realistically, I am going to be waiting some time before I get my hands on this plant, because here in the UK I can get a 12 centimetre pot for around £130. I guess that's not the worst price if you really wanted it. But if you would like a 30 centimetre pot for a bit more of a beefy plant, then you're looking at around £300. Now, when I buy new plants personally, I prefer to get a slightly more established plant, and this is because I have found from experience that the smaller plants, the baby plants, they don't necessarily survive as well. At least that's my personal experience, and it's more difficult, say, to get them through the winter than it is a more established plant. So when I buy a plant, I want to buy an established one because I want a bit more of a guarantee that it's going to survive. So yeah, the smaller one probably wouldn't be for me. I would be looking at a bigger one. There is also the Florida Ghost, which is a little bit cheaper. That's another option. But the Florida Beauty, I have to admit, absolutely gorgeous. If that came down in price, I would definitely snap it up. Next on the list is the latest Monstera Deliciosa. It is the Mint Monstera, and of course this is kind of filling the shoes of the Monstera elbow and tie constellation. Even though those plants are still going for pretty decent money, they are now starting to crop up in stores, especially in the US. I've seen that you guys are getting them in your big box stores and stuff like that at really low prices, so that tells me they're starting to fill the demand, which brings the prices down. So maybe eventually we'll catch up here in the UK. The Monstera Mint is quite expensive at the moment. As of making this video, here in the UK you could get hold of a small baby, and I mean a teeny tiny tot, for £200. No thank you. You could get a 30cm pot for £600. I don't think so. And what if you wanted a mature, large, well-established Monstera Mint? You are looking at more than £2,000. Never in a month of Sundays, not for me. Maybe you'd pay that for it, but that to me is like the kind of money I'd want to put in my savings account for something sensible. So what do I think of this plant? Well, I'm going to be really honest with you. I kind of like looking at pictures of it. However, my bog standard regular Monstera deliciosa has recently been having a lot of issues with pests, and it looks absolutely terrible right now. And also I've discovered in the course of owning this plant that I don't really like the growth pattern of it. It takes up a lot of space. As you might know, it's a vining plant, so you have to give it something to climb, otherwise it's going to sprawl. So either way, you've got to give it a lot of space. And I just don't really enjoy the plant enough to be in love with it. So to get a rare version of it wouldn't make sense for me personally, but I know this is a very popular plant for lots of people. And you know, if my Monstera deliciosa as it stands was to kind of pass away because of the pest problems, would I get another one because I love that plant so much? No, I wouldn't. I'm really over the Monsteras. So yeah, to get a rare version, I definitely do not want a Monstera Mint, and equally I would not want an elbow or a tie constellation either. I'm just so over Monsteras. I much prefer Monstera Adansonii. It's more lightweight and yeah, it grows faster. Next is the Monstera Burle Flame, and yeah, this one is still fairly expensive here in the UK. You could get a tiny little baby that's not mature for about £100, but it would be a really small to get that one. But if you'd like a 3-leaf 17cm pot, that's going to set you back around £900. You'd really have to love this plant, wouldn't you? And looking at it, I don't know, there are other options you could get. Monstera Esqueleto, even Monstera Adansonii. It depends if you really just adore this plant, and I personally don't. I don't feel that it's really appealing to me personally for my tastes. I definitely wouldn't buy it at these high prices, and honestly I wouldn't buy it when it comes down in price either. It's just not to my taste, which is fine. And these are just my opinions, so it's fine if your opinion's different to mine. We all like different things, so it's absolutely fine if you love something I hate and vice versa. So guys, now we've come to the end of the video. I would really love to know which of these plants you would or wouldn't purchase. Would you purchase them at these high prices, or would you wait for the price to come down? Do you even like these plants? I would love to know what your opinions are. I really hope you found today's video interesting and informative, and if you did enjoy it, maybe give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see more houseplanty content from me. And until next time guys, as always of course, make sure you look after your plants and look after yourself.